Hasn't popped up yet. Oh, looks like it might
Yep,
be starting.
it's good on my hand.
Oh, yep. Looks like we're live. Hey everyone. So my name is Nick Raboy from MongoDB, and with me I have Max. You want to give yourself an
Hi everybody,
introduction,
I'm Max.
Max?
I'm based in Paris. You can probably guess that from my sexy French accent.
Yeah, I'm not in Paris. I'm over in California in the United
And we have
States.
a crazy setup to
So
have a dual streaming from California to Paris just in one stream.
yeah, it's yeah, we're very new to the whole Twitch stuff. So it may not be as smooth as we're anticipating, but we're getting the hang of it. But it shouldn't stop us from delivering some good content and engaging with you. We are active in the chat, so if you want to chat with us as we go through the material, maybe there's some kind of technical difficulty that we're not aware of, just go ahead and message us, and we'll hop right on it.
Yep, all
Right,
good.
Max? Yeah. So our topic today is going to be around developing with MongoDB. So in particular, we're gonna take a look at developing with Go and MongoDB, and then if there's time, we're gonna look at Java with MongoDB. And if there's no time, we're gonna maybe just push that over into a episode
Yep,
of its own.
all
Right,
good.
Max? Perfect. So let me go ahead and switch scenes, and I'll paint a story, and we'll see where we're going to end up here. So what I'm going to do, because I am trying to manage this stream as well as Max is, but I just opened up my browser. Max, you want to
Yep.
full screen it for us? Perfect. Yeah, so what I have right here is we have MongoDB Atlas. So this is the cloud version of MongoDB. And it's going to be what we're going to be using in this particular stream. So we're going to be connecting to it from our local running Go application. We're going to be working with our collections. We're going to be doing some basic CRUD operations, kind of just getting you familiar with what it takes to develop. So we won't worry about actually setting up Atlas for this particular stream. The assumption is that you've set it up, but we will be seeing some tips and tricks as we go along. So look at that sweet MongoDB shirt from Lo War. Thanks. Thanks for the compliment. So that was a comment in the Twitch chat. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go into my code editor. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code for my development. And what I want to make clear starting is I have a few plugins installed that makes Go development a little easier. So you'll notice that as I type things along, it'll automatically import stuff. I'll have type autocomplete, things like that. If you don't have those kind of plugins in your IDE, just go ahead and add those imports and do that kind of stuff manually. But what we want to do, even before maybe we start adding code, is we want to install that MongoDB Go driver. So if you go to your browser, there's actually a driver page on GitHub. What the documentation recommends. So in this case, we're going to be using dep as our dependency manager. And I'm just going to copy that line of code. Now, if you install Go on your computer, it probably doesn't have dep installed by default. You can just go ahead and install it based on the dep documentation that's external to MongoDB. But I already do have it installed. So I copied that line. I'm going to go back into my editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say dep init inside
You
my
have a little
terminal.
lag. Yeah,
And
give
that's
it
going
a
to go ahead
sec.
and
Oh,
create.
wait, it's good now.
Yeah, all right, perfect.
Yeah, there's a
We're
small
good now,
delay
right?
between California and Paris.
Yeah, the setup that we have going on is super weird, right? We have my stream feeding into Paris, and then Paris
Yep.
feeding it into Twitch, right? It's an interesting setup that we have. But I did a dep init. What it did was it created a few files for us, especially this Go package toml file, which is going to handle all of our dependencies. I'm also going to paste in that line that I copied from GitHub. And it's going to fetch the sources. And it's probably going to tell us that they're not used yet because I'm not trying to use any MongoDB sources. Yeah. So it'll use it as soon as I start adding code that's relevant. But if I look at my Toml file, I can look, and it is using version 1.13 of the Go driver. So in terms of auto importing, this is what I mean. So let's say fmt print line, and I'm going to say maybe starting. See how it automatically added import fmt when I hit save? So this is the kind of stuff that it's going to do automatically for me. And I'm going to revisit the top of this code periodically just so that way you have an idea of the imports that I'm using. Now, what we want to do is we want to connect to our cluster. So what we need to do is we need to define the client URI. So this is going to be the Atlas URI, and you can actually get it inside of Atlas. You can click connect, get your URI string, and enter your username and password. But for privacy reasons, I've added it as an environment variable already, so that way I don't have to reveal it throughout this stream. So what we can do is we can say something like client. We can catch an error if there is an error, and we can say mongo.new client. And I'm just going to hit save so that way it imports for us. You can see that it imported this particular driver. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to say options, because it's expecting some client options, and this is where we actually define the URI string. But we're going to say client. We're going to say, I'm actually going to save it so it imports, so that way I have type ahead going forward. And we're going to say apply URI. And this expects a string. So this is where you would enter your connection string. But like I said, I have it in my environment variables. So I'm going to just pull them directly out of that. So I'm going to say Atlas URI. And it's throwing an error right now because we're actually not using client or the error variables right now. But we will, and that error will go away. So we'll start by catching maybe that error. So we're going to say if error not equal to nil, and maybe log.fatal error. Now, if there is no error with the actual creation of our URI string, now we can actually try to establish a connection. Looks like Max is engaging in the chat. He's a moderator, so he has a little sword icon next to his name. So definitely ask him questions. Make sure he stops me if you have a question. You still with me, Max? Or did I lose you?
I'm here.
All right. So let's go ahead and establish that connection, because this new client, that's not the connection as of now. So what we can say is client.connect. And you can see that it expects a context and it returns an error. So we needed to define that context. And that context has information like, what should our timeout be if it's taking too long to connect? Things like that. And we're going to be using it throughout this particular application. And that's not strictly a MongoDB thing. It's a Go thing. But we're going to be using it with the MongoDB driver. So let's go ahead and say maybe context. Maybe we'll ignore the error for this one. And we'll say equals context dot with timeout. We can say context dot background, and that's a method. And we can say maybe 10 seconds. So 10 times time dot second. And we can use that inside of the connect. We'll catch the error. So I could say something like if error equals, and we can say error not equal to nil, and we can say log.fatal error. And it's going to get a little more exciting as we progress. This is just connection to the database cluster, but things are definitely going to get more interesting. I'm going to have Max throw some curveballs at me as well to see where we end up. And we're probably going to make 100 errors along the way, but we'll troubleshoot them together. So let's go ahead. I'm just looking at the chat.
So the first thing you could do maybe is print like the list of collections or database you have on the cluster.
We can. I'm not. I guess I am connected. We do want to do one thing before I start spitting out that kind of stuff. Is I want to make sure that when the application loads, we disconnect from that database. So I'm going to say defer, and I'm going to say client.disconnect. And I'm going to pass in that context again. And the defer, if you're unfamiliar with it when it comes to Go, when the function terminates, then the defer function is called, and it calls disconnect. So it'll do it for us automatically. So you want to know our databases, right? Is that what I understand, Max?
Yeah, list the databases, for example, or the collections from one collection. Up to you.
Yeah, so we can actually say list database names. And what that's going to do is it's going to expect the context. It's going to expect a filter. And it's going to return a slice of string. So the filter, if we want every single database inside of our cluster, our filter is going to be empty. We're not filtering for anything. But we could easily filter if we want. And we're going to definitely filter when it comes to standard queries. But let's say list database names. Let's provide that context. And let's go ahead for the filter. We're just going to say bson m for map. And that's going to be empty. And like we saw, that returned a slice of string. So let's go ahead and say databases. Let's go ahead and catch the error if there is one. And maybe print out the error if there's an error. And we'll print out the databases. So I'm just going to say fmt print line databases. And I'm going to save it. Let's go ahead and try to run it. See where we end up right now. Go run main.go. And with a little bit of luck, it prints out whatever databases I have. And it did. Is that visible, Max? It should be, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the databases that I have in my Atlas cluster. And we can validate that by going back into the browser. Click on collections for this particular cluster.
Give it a sec.
And you can see.
Yeah. Okay, all good.
Oh, yeah. I can go back and show you what I did. I clicked on collections. I don't know if my mouse is showing up in the stream or if it's just showing what I'm doing.
Not.
That's weird. We'll figure that out in a later stream. But it shows that I have two collections here. And then when we actually ran our code, it came up with 4. And I'm sorry, not collections, databases. Max, you able to tell us why admin and local aren't showing
Yeah,
up?
it's because there are system collections, so they don't show up by default on the Atlas cluster because you're not supposed to mess with those. But technically they exist, so they are listed when you actually send the query directly from the driver.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and create a new database. Let's work with a collection. Let's maybe try to add some data to it, and see how easy it is to get kind of engaged with MongoDB in your Go applications. So we know our databases. Let's just go ahead and say database, and we're going to say equals. Let's go ahead and say client.database. And we're going to specify the database that we want to use. And I'm going to call it Twitch. And you'll notice Twitch is not part of anything that I had in that return. And I just noticed that I still have my code up. Didn't catch me, Max.
Oh yeah.
All right. My code should be up, right?
Give it a sec.
Maybe. It's working on it.
Yeah, scroll it still. I don't know. Yeah, it's still. Yeah. Okay, it's good now. Yeah, it's because of the lag, right? Between California and Paris.
Yeah. It's more complicated than it seems to do two people Twitches, right, Max?
Took us a few hours.
If we have a third person, I don't even know what we would do if we had a third person on this. So anyways, I just added this. This is what I was doing when my browser window was still up. So I've decided that I want to use a Twitch database, which doesn't exist in the list that was returned. That's because as soon as I start using it, it's going to be automatically created for us. So I have my database. Let's go ahead and say that we want to create a collection and use a collection. So I'm going to say database dot collection. And this time around, I'm going to call it recipes. I saved it. It's throwing an error because I'm not using collection yet, but we will. So we have no data in our database yet. We have no data in our collection. So the first step is maybe we want to insert some data. So maybe we want to insert a recipe into our collection. So we have a few options. So if I said collection dot insert, we have an insert one and an insert many. So inserting one would be one single document versus insert many. We could do several documents in that insert. So let's go ahead and try insert one. What it's going to expect a context, and it's going to expect whatever document we want to insert. So I'm going to say context, and for now I'm going to use bson.m, so bson map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide some bson that's just a bunch of fields and keys where the order is not particularly important. And we're going to see other data types as we progress, but for now we're going to use map. So as far as what I want to insert, maybe I want to insert a recipe name. So maybe this time I say maybe chocolate chip cookies. Maybe for ingredients, I want to insert an array of ingredients. So this wouldn't be necessarily the recipe itself, but maybe the ingredients. So what I can do is I can say bson.a for array. And I could provide all of the array items that I want to add. So for example, maybe I say I want to add eggs, flour, sugar. And this is a really bad recipe. I don't suggest that you use it. I'm just going to say chocolate chips. It's definitely an incomplete recipe, but we have a list of ingredients for this particular document. So I'll add my commas here.
Bson.m? Because I'm confused with this notation.
Yeah, bson m would be a map. So this would be just a basic like hash map where you have a key and you have a value. You have bson.a, which is an array, so it's just a list of items. And then there's actually bson.d, and that's for document. So the difference between document and the others is with a map, it doesn't really matter the order of these keys and values. With a document, it does matter the order. And that's useful when you're working with certain filters like a range query where you have like a greater than, where the order of your fields actually matters.
Cool. Yeah,
does that make sense?
Cool.
Perfect. So insert one. I already forgot what this one returned. So I'm going to say collection.insert one. So it looks like it returns either a result or an error. So let's go ahead and catch it. So what I'm going to say is maybe I'm going to say result insert one, and I'm going to call it error. If there was an error, so it wasn't nil, what I'm going to say is I'm going to say maybe log.fatal, and I'm going to throw that error. Otherwise, it was successful, and I'm going to say maybe fmt.print format, and I'm going to say inserted value new line, and I can say result insert one dot the ID that was inserted. So because I was returned an insert one result, and this is just one of the fields of that result. So if I save it and I try to run it, hopefully it works. So it returned an object ID. It's still printing out my database information, but it returned an object ID. If I go back into my browser and I look at Atlas, let me refresh it. I realize it's still loading. So I'll give it a second.
It's good now.
Is it still loading over here, Max? It's good. All right, so it created a database here called Twitch, created recipes. There's one recipe here. Has an array of ingredients of exactly what I entered. So far, so good, right, Max?
Good to me.
So maybe what we want to do now is we have some data, at least for the temporary. We want to query for that data. So I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to change the scene. And as soon as that loads, I'm going to give it a second.
Yep, good.
Good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a find operation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say collection dot find, and I have again the option to either find multiple In this case, it's just find or find one. That would be a single document. I'm going to just do a find as many documents that might exist based on my filter. So what it's going to expect is it's going to expect a context, and it's going to expect the filter that I want to use. So in this case, if I said bson.m and left it blank, it's going to return all documents in that collection, just like my list database names did. But in this case, maybe I want to do a find based on chocolate chip cookies. So I can say name, and I can say chocolate chip cookies. So that in theory would find all documents that match that filter. Now, as far as the result goes, it's going to return either a cursor and an error. So I'm going to say cursor, maybe find, so that way I know what my variables are. Now, if there was an error, we're going to catch it like we normally do. If there was no error, we have two options when it comes to working with that cursor. We can either convert that cursor into a slice and get all of the data all at once, or we can iterate over that cursor. So if you don't have a lot of data in your collection, you know you don't have a lot of data, it's acceptable to say cursor.all. Let me cursor find dot all. That'll just dump all of the records that come back into a variable. So in this case, an interface. If you know you have a lot of documents, you might want to iterate over them so that way you receive your results in batches. So definitely choose whatever's most appropriate to you, right, Max? Did I get that information right?
Yep.
When it comes to cursors, I know that you're a Java developer. Are you working with cursors
Yeah,
in
it's the
Java?
same principle. Yeah,
Yeah,
more or less. But yeah, it's the same idea.
more or less. All right. Well, I know that I only have one document, so I'm just going to say all. So that's going to expect a context, and then whatever I want to dump the data into. And I don't have anything right now, so I need to create a variable. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say var. I'm going to say maybe recipes, and this is going to be a slice of bson m, so a slice of maps, so multiple maps. And I'm going to say recipes. Now, if there was an error, I'm going to catch it. I'm going to say, let's just throw an error here. If we'll just terminate the application if an error exists. Otherwise, what we can do is maybe we can print out all of the recipes that was returned. So I'm going to say fmt print line maybe, and then recipes. Now, what do you think, Max? Should I comment out this insert one so that way we're working with just that one piece of data?
It's up to you. You're the boss.
Up to me. All right. I'm going to comment it out. So we have a document in there as of right now. All we want to do is we want to find it. It of course is going to match because I matched it. I knew what I inserted, but let's go ahead and give it a shot. Must be a slice. So I probably want the ampersand there. Let's try that again. This is some Go things that pop up every once in a while. So in this case, it returned a slice of map. So it returned potentially more than one map. In this case, it just returned everything that was inside of that particular document. Now, what should we try next, Max? Should we add more data?
Yeah, you can add more data. You can do an update.
Yeah, let's actually start by adding more data here. Let's try that insert many. Let's go ahead and say.
So you want to do a batch insert?
Yeah, we are. Insert many, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you're talking
Send
about?
an array instead of just one document.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and try it. Collection dot insert many. It's going to expect a context, and it's going to expect multiple documents. So a slice of interface, and then each interface is going to be a bson map. So it's just going to be multiple of what we saw previously up at the top. And I realize you can't see my mouse, so I just highlighted it. So in this case, let's go ahead and say Bison M, we have a name. What should our recipe be, Max?
Chocolate cake.
All right, I'm going to say chocolate
All right.
milk. Much simple recipe, right? 2 ingredients. Bison, and I think I spelled the
I can
ingredients
confirm
wrong.
that.
How do, where am I going wrong here?
Yep.
That looks better, right? I can't spell. I make so many errors on the word recipe. I always confirm it with receipt, like when I'm shopping. So it's like, terrible at spelling. So we have an ingredient. In this case, we have milk, and we have chocolate, right? Let's go ahead and add another item. I'm going to copy it. What's another recipe we got?
Lemon
let's
pie.
keep it simple, right? All right, I'm gonna go with that one this time. You'll have to tell me which ingredients it has.
Probably
Lemon
some
pie?
lemon and some pie, just like the chocolate milk.
All right. For this sake, I want to add. It probably has eggs, right? Because I'm going to be doing a certain type of query in a minute, and I wanted to demonstrate arrays that have similar items, right? So I'm going to say maybe flour, and we'll leave it at that. It probably has many more ingredients than that, but we'll leave it.
Sounds
How's
good.
that sound, Max?
Doesn't taste good, but
All
looks
right.
good.
So I don't think it looks good either, but I wouldn't want to eat that. So it's yelling at us because insert many we're not using it, and I misspelled it as well. I think I have a spell checker on that only works half the time for Visual Studio Code. But what we want to do is maybe catch that error if there is one again. So if error is not equal to nil, log.fatal error. And if it's successful, we can say fmt print line, or let's go ahead and say printf. We're going to say the string is going to be inserted %v maybe, and then what did I call it? Result insert many, and then inserted IDs. I'll do a new line. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. I'm going to clear it. I'm going to say go run. It looks like it inserted 2 IDs here, 2 object IDs. It did my query. It found chocolate chip cookies still. I'm going to go into my browser again and refresh.
Yay!
So it looks like the data's there, right? So let's go ahead and find recipes based on ingredients that we have, right? So maybe we'd say that we have eggs, or maybe we have eggs and sugar. We want to find any recipe that kind of matches the ingredients. I think there's apps around that are kind of like that,
Yeah.
right, Max? What can I cook with the items in my pantry?
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Very useful.
So yeah, it could be. I mean, our recipes are very bad, so I don't know how far we're gonna get, but let's give it a shot, right? So let's go ahead and add another query here, and I'll comment this out again, so that way we don't end up inserting a lot of documents every time we run the application. So I just commented out this insert many. Let's go ahead and do another query here. This time around, I'm going to use the actual cursor. I'm going to iterate over it to show you what it would look like. But I'm going to say
You need to switch the view,
cursor.
Nick.
Oh, thanks for letting me know. Does that look better?
Oh, yeah. It's getting there.
Not yet. All right,
That's good.
perfect. So because you didn't see it previously, all I did was I commented out this insert many. That's all I did. So that way we don't have any inserts happening. I'm going to say maybe cursor find, maybe error, and I'm going to say collection dot find again. I'm going to say context, And then for this one, I'm going to say bson dot m. And because I wanted to actually query inside of the arrays, what's that term called, Max, when we have to use array queries, right? I think there's a term, right? Is it just array operators?
You use the array operators when you want to do an update, but when you do a query, it's just like you look for like it's a key value.
It doesn't
I'm
have a
not sure there's a
specific name.
specific name for that.
All right, maybe there. I didn't know if there was. I didn't want to butcher it. 'Cause Max is definitely the professional here when it comes to all this stuff. He's been at MongoDB a lot longer than I have.
Please.
Right. So ingredients. So that's going to be our field that we're going to be filtering on. What we can do is we can say bson.d. So document. So this is where the order matters. So in this case, we can use an all. So what we want to say with an all is we're going to say every item that we add to this operator, it's going to be kind of like an and, right, Max? Like if I add an array of items, it's going to be item 1 and item 2. Is that correct?
I guess, yeah.
Have you used this operator
So
before?
this is the
all?
update, right? What are you trying to do here?
No, this is for find. So basically, what I want to do
the
is
find
I
all,
want to
right?
find all
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
If you look
definitely.
for eggs and flours, you're gonna
Find
get
all
the
recipes
documents,
for ingredients.
And you don't depend on the order on this one.
Yeah.
Because if you just specify an array
So
with flour
A.
and eggs, it's gonna look for exactly the array with flour and eggs in this order. With the $all, you are looking for either eggs or flours somewhere in the array. As long as you have both of them, you get to match the document.
Correct. So does this look right? Does this look good? We're doing it all, and these are the eggs and the flour because we're working with some array items here. I'm going to iterate over my cursor this time. So I'm going to say for. I'm going to say what is it? Cursor find dot next this time. I'm going to provide my context. I'm going to decide what variable I want to load each iteration in. So I'm going to say var. I'm going to say maybe recipe. I don't think I'm using recipe anywhere. This is going to be bson m. And I'm going to say if error equals, I'm going to say cursor find dot decode. And I'm going to say that I want to load it into recipe. Otherwise, there was some kind of error because it's not nil. I'm going to say log.fatal error. And I'm going to print it out after it loads it in. So I'm going to say fmt print line, and I'm going to say recipe, and I'm going to save it. And I don't see any errors. It doesn't seem to have yelled at me anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it. So I'm going to say go run main.go. And if you have any questions in the chat, please stop me. I definitely want to help. I want this to be an engaging process. It looks like it found 2. The first one was from our first find 1 operation, or our find where it was chocolate chip cookies. The second 2 came out of lemon pie and chocolate chip cookies because both had eggs and flour in them. Right, Max?
Yep, looks good.
There's also another operator called in, where it's kind of like an or, where it would be eggs or flour show up. So you have different options when it comes to filters. Just doing a time check. We're good. So I think we're good on reads, right, Max? Maybe we want to explore other parts of the CRUD.
Yeah, maybe you want to do an update, for example.
Yeah, we can do an update. Maybe we want to update chocolate chip cookies to just cookies. How's that sound? Or maybe lemon pie to just pie. How do you feel? How do you feel about that? Feel good?
Yeah, all
right.
good.
So what we can do is we can actually say collection dot update, and you'll notice that I have an update many and an update 1 kind of like insert one and
find one
insert
and
many.
update, which is
They
very,
kind of
very
work the
cool.
same. I actually haven't used that one before. We could try to explore it. I may fail a lot,
Yeah, try this
but
one then. So just to
um,
be clear, the update one and update many is like fire and forget. You just send the update, and you don't really expect uh, to check the result, right? So you just send a query to a command to the database, and you just don't want the result. Don't want to see the result. But very often you want to update the view, for example, because if you have like a web interface or something like that, you want to send the update from the client interface and then update the client interface with the new updated data. And so if you don't want to query the data twice, if you don't want to send two commands to the database, you can do this in just one command with the find one and update command.
well said. Yeah, so let's give it a try. We'll see how successful we are. So it looks like it expects our context. For the filter, this is what documents we want to update, right, Max? So in this case, maybe we want to say bson.m. Maybe we'll say name. Do you want to update cookies or lemon
Let's
pie?
say update the lemon pie.
Lemon pie. All right, so that's our filter. So it's in this case, it's only ever going to find one document. And we want to say for the update, we're going to say bson.m. And this is actually, I think it might need to be a bson d.
Um,
But let's give it a try because the order does matter in our set operation, right, Max?
well, at
Because we're
least
going
you
to be
need
doing
the
a
set,
set.
yeah. So I'm not sure the order matters that much. Not sure.
Yeah, we'll try it, and if it fails, we can go back to
You're the
bson
Go
d,
expert
right?
here, definitely.
Yeah, well, there's other ways that I personally would use it, and I'm going to show those hopefully next. Versus rather than using bson m and bson d and bson a, you can actually do some object bindings, which actually, in my opinion, makes life a lot easier.
Mhm.
So we'll see those next. Got some comments in on the chat if you want to start answering those, Max. I'm not sure, but we're gonna say
Oh, what is MongoDB? Yeah.
drawn we're gonna say set or bson dot. You know what? Let's just try it. Bson m. See what happens. We're gonna say name. Maybe just change it to pi. This might work. So let's go ahead and look at the result. I'm going to say maybe update find result or error. If there's an error, let's go ahead and print it out. And otherwise, so you're saying this update result you think will have the actual document itself? Is that what you're thinking,
So
Max?
again?
You think the result of this find and update operation will actually have the updated document
No,
itself,
the
right?
version before the update, the old version
No.
by default. I'm betting on this one.
Sure. Well, let's take a look. All right.
Maybe
So I
comment
saved
the
it.
other
Uh,
find you have just to be,
you want me to? I'll comment
yeah, just to
all
avoid
of them out.
confusion.
And actually, I get too far ahead of myself here. I noticed that I didn't do something here. So on this particular find right here, because I used the cursor next, I'm iterating over the cursor. You want to close the cursor when you're done. So cursor find dot close. Whereas if you use the all that we saw the first time around, all closes it for us automatically. So definitely keep that in mind when you're choosing to use both of those. All right, so it's yelling at me again for some reason here. So it's saying it only returns a single result. All right, so maybe it doesn't return an error. So let's catch that. Save it. Let's try to run it, see what happens. See if we get lucky here. That looks interesting. It probably helps if I knew what that was actually returning, right? Oh, yeah. So I still have to decode the result that comes back. It looks like, which I didn't do.
Bison that you have right now.
Yeah, probably. So if I wanted to clean this up, I would say maybe var r, and then that's bson.m. And then what I could do is I can say update find result dot decode. That returns an error. We're going to say R. I won't catch the error this time around, but if it fails us, then maybe I'll go back and get the error. Let's try this again. It probably won't find anything this time because the update already happened, or hopefully it happened. Yeah, it's empty, so I assume that's because if I look at my browser here and refresh, yeah, so it did it the first time, even though they printed out the wrong thing. So maybe I changed that back to lemon pie right now, just so that way we can see what that result should have been. So I'll change it back to my code, give it a second to update here. I'm going to say, are we back? Yeah, we're back. Lemon pie. I'm going to say run it.
So you're changing lemon pie into lemon pie?
It's still empty. What did I?
I think that's not what you want.
My mistake here. That is not what I want. Good catch. So I got confused here between the filter and the update criteria.
So now you see you still see the document before it's updated, right?
Yeah. So it should still be pie inside of Atlas. So let's go.
It's pie in Atlas, and when you print the document in the output, you still see pie. That's correct.
You're right. So we saw what it was prior. And it should say lemon pie in Atlas now.
So if you want to see, I find this behavior a bit disturbing because, like I said, usually you want to update the view, with a new document. Usually you don't really like. Well, it's to be discussed, right? Because if I print this document, I have a new information, which is that before I actually do the update, the value was pi. If I use the ID or something else, it could not know this information. But if I want to update my view, then I need the version after the update is done, and this is done in the update options that you have at the end of the find one and update. It's like the last parameter you didn't use in this one. I guess it's optional in Go as well. So
yeah, maybe
you can give it a try.
So what should I try? Sorry,
so find one and update, and you had like the last parameter in the function.
Yeah. The last parameter in the function.
So you have context.
This one right here.
Then you have the filter. Then you have the update. Yeah, and then the last one is the options. And in the options, you can say that you want the version after the update.
And what do you think that is? So it's kind of like the set operator is what you're saying?
No, it's after, like it's a force parameter in the function.
Oh,
if you check the signature of find one and update.
Oops.
Yeah, the last one is like optional options.
Yeah, got it. Let's not dig too deep into that yet. I want to show some other cool stuff before maybe we run out of time, because I wanted to try to keep this an hour.
But at least that's where you have to hack if you want the version after the update and not the version before the update.
So we got a question inside of the chat. So I'm using the official Go driver for MongoDB. So this is the official one. All right, so next up, maybe we just do delete real quick, and then I want to show you the object mapping because I think that it's very helpful. So we have insert query, we have update. Let's delete. So let's go ahead and say collection dot delete. Again, we have the option to do all of those same options that we saw when it came to insert, update, and now delete. In this case, maybe I'll say delete many. I'll provide it the context, and I'll provide it which documents based on the filter that I want to delete. So I'm just going to be specific again because you have the full scope of whatever the MongoDB query language filters you want to use. But I'm just going to keep it simple for this particular stream. I'm going to say M, and I'm going to say name. Let's go ahead and maybe delete pi, or any document that has a name of pi, which in this case it's only one. But if multiple showed up, then it would of course delete those as well. I didn't pay attention if this actually returned anything. It returns a delete result or an error. So let's go ahead and take a look. So delete our error, and we're going to say if error not equal to nil, log fatal, and we're going to say error. Otherwise, let's go ahead and say fmt.printf. That's going to say deleted, and let's go ahead and say result delete dot the count of documents that were deleted. So how many documents were deleted when we ran this? I'm going to say let's run it. Deleted 0. That's because I just remembered we did our update to lemon pie, right? So let's go ahead and try it again. Deleted 1. So we can verify that in Atlas. Switch over to my browser. I'll do a nice refresh here. Give it a second to load up. It looks good. It looks like pi is now completely gone. So that's good.
RIP.
What was that?
Rest in peace.
Oh, all right. I didn't catch that for a second. Next up, what we can also do instead of just deleting documents is we can delete entire collections. So I'll just show a drop real quick, and then we'll do some data bindings, and then we'll just maybe review a little bit. So what we can do is I can say maybe if error equals collection.drop, provided the context, see if there was any kind of issue with the drop, and then print out that error. So in this case, it's going to delete every document within the collection.
You forgot to switch the view.
Oh, my bad. All right, so let me first go into Atlas while it's up, since I still have it up, and then I'll show you the code that I just added. So it's gone. The database is the collection is gone. So let me go back into my code now to show you what actually I did. This is what I added. So I added a collection.drop, which was our recipes collection, and it dropped it. So that's CRUD in a nutshell. If we wanted to now, we can actually bind our BSON to actual Go objects, so data structures. And I'll scroll up to the top. I'll show you where we stand as far as imports now, because I told you at the beginning that things were automatically being imported for me.
It's still a bit blurry.
But what I'm going to do... That's all right. I'll wait.
So it's still a bit yeah, okay, it's good now. And can you explain the difference to the audience between doing a delete of old documents and dropping the entire collection all at once?
I don't
Okay,
have a
so
good answer for
I
that.
do then.
Do you?
So when you delete, like when you drop the entire collection, like you did, you're also dropping all the context of the collection. So that includes all the metadata, like the index, for example, or the distribution of the data in a sharded cluster, for example. So when you drop the collection, you are losing all that information. But if you have like, I don't know, 5 index defined, for example, in this collection, and you just want to delete the documents but keep the index definition for the next batch that you would insert, for example, then you don't want to do a drop.
That is a good answer. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm still learning. I learned a lot from just writing
Well,
code as well.
everybody's learning, so
So
it's
I don't
cool.
know everything. Yeah. Yep. Everyone's learning. So I'll scroll back at the top. These are the imports that I'm using. It shouldn't. I don't think it's blurry anymore, right? Did it just get blurry
Yeah, no,
again?
it's good, it's good.
I'm watching it as we go on my tablet just to see, so that way nothing crazy is happening. All right, it's good now. So what I want to do now, let's go ahead and create a Go object here. Let's go ahead and say type. I'll call this recipe, and this will be a struct. We'll have an
So
ID,
you want to show us the
and
object mapping, right?
I am, yeah. So this is kind of like Pojo in a lot of languages. So when you do queries on the database, it actually maps the BSON fields to these objects that you create. So that way, it's a little easier to work with them because while it's nice to be able to have kind of like a schema list design when it comes to BSON M, D, A, that kind of stuff that we saw. I personally prefer to define it all as a struct. And everyone's going to have their mixed opinions. What do you prefer, Max?
Either way, you choose.
You, no, I mean, what's your preference when it comes to development? Do you prefer to map them, or do you prefer to use
So
BSON?
it depends. It depends how you are manipulating your data. If you have a very unstructured data, then mapping might not be a good idea, because you might struggle actually with this. But if you have a very structured data, then mapping is just making your life easier, right? So it just depends what kind of data you are
Yeah,
manipulating actually.
yeah. So in this case, ID. This is going to be our MongoDB document ID, so our object ID. So in this case, it's going to be a type primitive, and this is going to be object ID. And I'm going to add the annotations for the binding. So this is going to be BSON. And if you're familiar with Go, you can also use XML, JSON, things like that. But for BSON, in MongoDB, it's referenced as underscore ID. So that's how we're going to map it. We also, for this particular document, we have a name that's of type string. And that is going to be BSON. And according to our data, we have a name. And then ingredients. And this is a slice of string. And this is going to be BSON. And this is going to be ingredients because that's what we have it in the database. So even though that we were using BSON A for ingredients, we really want to work with a Go slice of string. So what we can do is we can make some changes now. I realize I don't have it in the database, so I'm going to comment this out or uncomment it. So this is our insert one. I'm going to leave that. What I could easily do is I could easily, instead of doing a BSON M here, actually let's change it up just for the sake of sanity. I'm going to say maybe recipe equals recipe, and we're just going to paste all of this in. Should work. This is not a BSON array anymore. This is going to be a slice. I'm going to save it, add my comma in there. What's it yelling at me for here? Oh, it doesn't like this. So I got to change this to name and this to ingredients. Recipe declared but not used. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. So I'm going to remove bson m here. I should be able to just provide recipe here. Looks like it accepted it. I'll scroll down, comment out some of this update. We're going to not worry about dropping or updating for now. Commented that out. Let's go ahead and uncomment this chocolate chip cookies. So this would be our find. So we're finding a single document. We can choose to use bson m because this is just a filter, or we can actually use our data structure. But I'm going to leave this as a filter or bson m. But I'm going to change this to a slice of recipe. So this is our actual object that we created. And in theory, it should work now. So I'm going to run it. That's odd. We'll see what happened here. We'll see if it actually worked. So I'm going to refresh.
Probably binding issue.
Could be a binding issue. Or,
That's weird.
Huh. That hasn't happened to me before. Did you notice anything strange in my code?
Probably is. I think you are setting the object ID, I guess, to 000. Maybe it's initialized. It's initialized by default in the object, I guess, at the top.
You are, yeah. So I didn't explicitly define an ID when I created my recipe right here. I didn't explicitly define. If in those scenarios, what I probably want to do is I want to say omit empty. So omit empty means if I don't provide an ID, I shouldn't just provide it an empty value. I shouldn't provide it at all in the object when I send it. So it's in this case, if I don't provide an ID, it's not going to send anything. So let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to delete it from my collection. I know that I'm not sharing my screen here for the browser. I'm just deleting it real quick. I'm going to go back into the code and I'm going to run it. And we're going to see it work this time. That looks a lot better, right?
Looks like a more genuine ID, I would say.
If I go to my browser now and I refresh, it looks like it's there. Again, you have options when it comes to how you want to work with your data in Go and MongoDB. All I did here was I created bindings to actual fields in a data structure. I think that's all I wanted to share for today. We're kind of at the top of the hour. I know that we didn't get into the Java stuff, Max.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry about that.
Like I expected that to be quite long actually, because an hour looks like the time you need to do these kind of things. So yeah, next week I can. Like, are we streaming next week? Yeah, I guess we are. So next week I can cover the Java thing.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'm gonna change my view so that way it gets rid of our code and just shows. If you want to update.
Yep.
But I mean, it's really it's not too difficult to work with MongoDB. I know that you don't know Go that well,
not at
Max. But do you think that anything was? You were able to try my code and help me with these commands. It couldn't have been that bad, right?
Could have been worse. I guess I adapt fast.
Yeah. So getting in contact with us. I mean, just throw out some shameless plugs, I guess. If you want to follow me and ask me questions about this, just reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at NRABOY. So Raboy, not NRA boy, just Raboy. It's my first initial, last name. How about you, Max?
Yeah, I'm gonna send them to the chat.
Yeah, please add them both to the chat.
Done.
Perfect. Anything else you want to add before we close out of this
well,
thank
you very much for all the people who joined us and asked questions and interact in the chat. Hope you liked it. The video will be uploaded on YouTube at some point. I guess we need to maybe do some edits. I'm not sure. Do some trimming. I'm not too sure. And we're gonna upload as well on YouTube for the posterity.
Yeah. Well, all right.
See
See
you
you later,
later. Thank you
everyone.
very much, everyone. Bye bye.